Folks, welcome into That Betting Show for January 8th. It's a Tuesday. Mayhem last night in the national championship game. Depending on which way that you bet, this is your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs, designed in 20 minutes or less. Give us a follow there at SBR Sports Picks on Twitter. Subscribe to us on that YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button every single time we go live on the show. You'll get the notification to pop in and get your move on. SBRodds.com, one of the best outlets on the internet to find the actual odds that you're going to need to survive as your sports betting needs move on. Let's take a look today. Introductions not required, but always we like to bring in the best in the business. He's Teddy Saransky. Give him a follow at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour. Give me a follow at RightSideVP. The hot topic of the day, Teddy. What else is the hot topic today? A national champion was crowned last night in college football. Let's get after it.
Yeah, no debate as to who the national championship winner was. One-sided route by the Clemson Tigers. Trevor Lawrence, not like he wasn't on the national stage before, but now he has entered the American consciousness as the next big thing. They're always already talking about tanking for the 2021 NFL draft to get Trevor Lawrence, who certainly looked like a transcendent talent last night. 347 yards, 3 touchdowns, and it was a rout, Donnie. This was not a sweat. If you had Clemson, Alabama, Saban's taking the blame. I shouldn't have done the fake field goal, all of this stuff. Bottom line, Clemson played one heck of a football game and becomes the first team in college football history to finish the season 15-0. But the debate begins. Alabama was supposed to be the greatest college football team ever, and now Clemson smacked them. Is Clemson the greatest college football team ever? What do you say, Donnie?
It was an amazing game, and I was thoroughly impressed by Clemson from start to finish, Teddy. A lot of the times you see, coming from a sports background and just watching sports your whole life, the whole key word comes up is adversity. The kickoff of the football game, you go 3 and out, Teddy. I believe it was 28 or 32 seconds. They 3 and out and gave it right to Alabama. First couple plays, Alabama's already on the move, and you're saying, here we go. Oh, if I bet Clemson, I never should have went against that Bama machine. And in the strike of a few seconds, a pass out into the flat turns into a pick six, and the game was off and running. But Teddy, the most interesting part about that is you see the pick six right there. Alabama comes back with the deep bomb to Judy, 7-7, and the sign of a champion, a well-coached team, answers the bell again to go up 14-7. When you look at, on paper, Dabo Swinney versus Nick Saban, each time they match up, Swinney seems to have his team ready to go each and every time, Teddy.
Sure. I mean, Swinney's teams tend to be loose, and Saban's teams tend to be a little bit tighter. And I remember this from the Pete Carroll days, man, when USC would come out in the field, what was that? The Oklahoma game, where USC's laughing and joking, and Oklahoma's all serious, and we're going to kill these guys. And that game was over in the first quarter, where USC, the more relaxed team, took care of business. I thought the turning point in the game last night came on the goal line stand. The score was 14-13. Alabama had marched down the field. They'd regained momentum. And Clemson, they were, first and goal. Clemson stopped them on first down. There was a false start, and Bama ended up having to kick the field goal there. If Bama goes up by a touchdown there, I think it might have been a different result when all was said and done. But Clemson's goal line stand turned the momentum one more time, and from that moment on, Clemson dominated the rest of the ballgame.
You're right, because when you look at a couple key components in that game, Teddy, a few plays, I mean, look, Clemson clear at the end of the game, the final score that we saw, it was a complete domination, but there are some key plays that end up getting there. If we remember, Alabama didn't score on back-to-back possessions, Teddy, where it looks like there was pretty clear pass interference or holding calls that would have set them up either first and goal or first and 10 from around the 15-yard line. But the key plays that really had me interested here is, number one, the fake field goal there, which is one of the more atrocious play calls, a 4th and 8 where your lead blocker is going to be, the kicker. And I mean, that was just blown up on contact. But you know what, when I really thought, Teddy, that they might have been on the ropes, and it was still early in the football game, late in the second quarter, down 2 touchdowns before heading in the half, 3 timeouts, they get the kickoff, and also 40 seconds on the clock. They decide to take it into the half. Very un-Nick Saban-like with that lightning offense. But it was clear from start to finish. And obviously the way the game played out. Teddy, talk about one thing real quick. We had yesterday the over-under, because I remember the opening number coming in around 60 to 60 and a half. The game ends at 60, even though it was a track meet in the first half. Weather conditions subsided. The turf wasn't all that bad. But boy, did you see a slowdown in the second half where it almost seemed to feel like teams weren't going to kick that field goal to maybe get over the top with a nice touchdown pass by Trevor Lawrence to put that to bed in the third quarter. I don't think anybody scored in the fourth quarter.
No, it was scoreless fourth quarter, and it had everything to do with the fact that Bama had, after the fake field goal was squashed, they went forward on fourth down after, following on every future possession, and they didn't make them. They didn't make the ones that counted. They got to the red zone repeatedly in the second half, but they didn't create points to show for it. Nonetheless, that early offensive explosion and the defensive score ends up cashing over bets. And yeah, officially it landed in the middle between the opener and the closer. Not many people cashed under bets on this game. I'll just put it that way. You had to bet it very, very early. The majority of the money came in with the total 50, 59 and a half, and then it was bet down as the week progressed. So game sneaks over the total despite a scoreless fourth quarter. Really, after the fireworks in the first, there wasn't much sweat for total bettors in this one, even though it didn't end up being a very high-scoring game. Still, cashed over bets for just about everybody.
Teddy, we are a betting show here, and it's never too early to start talking about next year. We are literally hours away from the end of the championship game, but bettors can still find value in the next season. The usual suspects, Teddy, up top there, Westgate and Las Vegas posting Clemson 9-5, Bama 5-2, and Georgia and Ohio State pulling in about 12-1 odds. I'm not a big future guy, and I know the overreaction. You say, well, these two teams are going to get back there next year. The one thing I do find interesting is you're always going to have a harder test when you go to the SEC. It's a little bit harder to get back to the title game. When I look at Clemson, with what they're going to have returning, and the ACC, Teddy, the Miamis of the world fired their coach. Willie Taggart at Florida State, once powerhouse, now just looks in shambles here. Not much resistance looking for Clemson to get back to this title game as opposed to Alabama here. Any thoughts on the futures here that we're looking at here with these top four teams?
Let's start with the concept of what kind of futures you need to bet right after the national championship game the previous year. Okay, there's only one kind of future worth betting, and that's a long shot. If you see someone out there, 50-1, 100-1, that has the potential to be live, yeah, it makes sense to get a future book wager down right now. If you're talking about Clemson, at plus 180 or Alabama at plus 250, those numbers will be available many months from now. There's no reason to lock up your money here. If you're talking about the second group of teams, talk about Ohio State at 12-1, Georgia 12-1, Michigan 14-1, Oklahoma 15-1, Texas at 20-1. How about Nebraska getting some respect? 25-1, Washington 25-1, Florida 25-1, Notre Dame 25-1. There's not a team on that list that I would bet right now, because I think those numbers are by and large going to hold. You're not going to see dramatic changes in those numbers in the weeks and months to come. Now, when you start talking about what you got to do come summertime, maybe you want to get some of these long shot wagers down. But right now, entertainment purposes only. You're not going to see me going to get my future book wager down in college football in January of the, for next January. Not going to happen right now.
Hey, Teddy, by the way, if Bama was such a lock here, I know you have a little bit of a tidbit here. It looks like one sportsbook out there thought Bama was such a lock that they're going to give a nice early payout. Now, trying to control the damage here, paying up both sides.
Yeah, you have to like what FanDuel does in this situation. FanDuel, they're looking to create market share. They're looking to get publicity. So what did they do? They paid out all the Alabama bettors in the future book. They paid them out before Bama won the title game. Why'd they do it? Well, a little bit of publicity stunt. I'm sure their liability wasn't crazy on Bama, but nonetheless, they paid out all the Bama wagers. Now they have to pay out all the Clemson wagers because Clemson won it. So FanDuel, good publicity stunt. Everyone who bet there probably happy, especially if you had an Alabama future ticket.
Absolutely. Heisman Trophy odds next year, Teddy, also out as well. No surprise here. I mean, look, we just saw the two top quarterbacks over the next few drafts. That's going to be Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa. Plus 175 for Tua, plus 450 for Trevor Lawrence. One quick tidbit here, Teddy, because I know back in the past when a guy wins the Heisman Trophy but still returns for his senior year, it almost seems like no matter what he does, he's not going to be able to win the Heisman because you get a little bit of a fatigue. Say, well, we don't want to give it to him again. Let's give it to somebody else. The fact that Tua did not win the Heisman this year, does that play into it next year and maybe to get a little bit more value with Tua, or am I just reading into this a little bit too much?
Again, at plus 180, what kind of value are you talking about?
None. Zero. He twists his ankle, it's over.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many players are in college football, okay? And you're getting plus 180 on one of them to win the Heisman Trophy. Obviously, he has to be the favorite. But at plus 180, I wouldn't bet anybody to win the Heisman Trophy. I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah, we always have those interesting thoughts here coming up. But, I mean, look, it's just ended, college football. Where did you go? Already looking forward to next year. Always a lot of fun. Let's flip it over to the NFL. A little hot topic talk here. The coaching carousel, Teddy, moving pretty fast. Already has one stop here. And a little bit surprising to me with the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator making it to Green Bay. Matt LaFleur hired by the Green Bay Packers after Josh McDaniels interviews. I guess Josh McDaniels just is going to make his career of interviewing and going right back to New England, maybe raising the issue, raising his price, or just taking it over later. A little bit of a surprising hire to me, though, Teddy. For the first one out of the gate, didn't seem like a lot of teams were in a rush, but they make their stand with Matt LaFleur here.
Yeah, and of course, when you look at the advanced metrics on Matt LaFleur, well, gee, he was in many ways more conservative than Mike McCarthy, who everyone's like, oh my God, McCarthy's too conservative. But LaFleur, in terms of running on first downs, run-based offense, and maybe that's what Green Bay wants to do, to create something the moral equivalent of what Drew Brees has in New Orleans, which is a run-based offense and a quarterback who can chuck it downfield. But certainly when you're talking about NFL coaching hires, LaFleur wasn't the hottest candidate out there, but the hottest candidate out there doesn't tend to be the best coach year in, year out. A lot of it's random. In terms of Matt LaFleur, I don't have a strong take on him as being a positive or a negative for Green Bay, but I don't look at him as being the guy that's going to design this unique, creative offense that's going to take advantage of all of Aaron Rodgers' skills.
Yeah, one would think that would be one of the better jobs out there because you do get Aaron Rodgers, but some lead to believe that there's a little bit of baggage saying, you can't have a guy that might butt head with Aaron Rodgers. You have to let him do his thing and sort of get out of his way. So maybe one of those coaching hires there that's not going to rub Aaron Rodgers the wrong way. Like if you get like a Bruce Arians in there, looks like he's headed to Tampa Bay. I just thought it was an interesting hire to start off. But obviously, as more of these days go on and more of these hires goes on, we'll talk those over to see who did what. But Teddy! This weekend, the big boys return. NFC Divisional Round line moves. We're seeing some nice moves here. As of yesterday, when we took to the air, Teddy, 47 and a half. We were looking at in that Chargers-Patriots game. And what we thought was going to be some windy and rainy conditions, but now looks to be switched up a little bit. High of 25 around kickoff, but clear conditions. But we saw a decisive move from about 47 to 45 and a half there. Any thoughts behind that one for you?
Well, I mean, certainly, we've seen a little bit of money on Kansas City. On Indy against Kansas City. That line really down to 5 in a lot of books right now, 5.5. We've seen a little bit of money for the Rams. Not a lot, but a little bit. The Rams -7. There were 6.5 at the open. We're seeing -115 at some of the key leading indicator books. We're seeing a little bit of money for the Chargers, despite the fact that they're playing another road game. How many road games? 5 and 6 weeks now?
Yeah.
For the Chargers. No, that's the Colts that are 5 and 6 weeks. The Chargers 3 in a row on the highway. But Chargers, back-to-back roadies. They're still taking a little bit of money in that ball game. You talked about the total just now getting bet down. And Eagles Saints, kind of interesting from a betting standpoint. Philly looks like they're going to be an attractive choice for bettors, and yet the line's still holding at 8. So there's clear wise guy support for New Orleans against a Philadelphia Eagles team that has flavor of the week about them this week. Obviously, it's not just a week, meaning that they won the Super Bowl last year, but certainly the Eagles, a popular public choice. The wise guys clearly betting this one the other way.
Teddy, Andy Reid coming off a bye over his history, usually very successful in doing that. But again, just one final point here. We're going to break down all these games as the week goes. When we look at this game with Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, electric. Maybe the MVP of the NFL, but still going to get his first start here in the playoffs. We talked about it last week about those quarterbacks coming in with veteran experience, playoff experience versus those rookies. Is that something that you might have you leaning towards the Colts in this environment to say, you know what? I might take a little bit of a flyer saying, maybe Patrick Mahomes is a little bit nervous, even though it doesn't seem like he's that type of quarterback.
Sure. I mean, Deshaun Watson doesn't seem like he's that kind of quarterback either. What happened in his first playoff game?
True.
He didn't play well.
Yep.
Certainly out of the gate, he didn't play well. Mitch Trubisky out of the gate did not play well. Lamar Jackson out of the gate did not play well. Now, Patrick Mahomes has been the exception to just about every rule in the NFL this season. He's been the guy that, rookie quarterbacks, first-year starters, He's been the exception. But certainly when it comes to playoff football, betting against the first-time starters has been a successful strategy in recent seasons, and or not recent seasons, basically for many seasons, and taking the dogs 14-1 ATS since the start of the 2017 playoffs. Guess you can understand why there's been a little bit of money coming on Indy against KC, despite Mahomes' spectacular regular season.
All right, folks, we're going to watch what you bet tonight. One of the more interesting segments that we do have. We're gamblers out here. There's going to be games on ESPN. We want to bet those games and give you a breakdown on those. The ACC, Teddy, going to take center stage tonight down on Tobacco Row. North Carolina State versus North Carolina, 9 p.m. on ESPN from PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina. NC State, Teddy, 10-0 at home. But we've also seen the North Carolina Tar Heels elevate their competitional play, beating Gonzaga. But on the road, went against Michigan and got slapped. Now going to go into a tough environment. What's going to take place in this game, Teddy?
Well, we're talking about two teams that have been point spread monsters so far this season. NC State, the better of the two, but combined 19-7-2 against the spread for North Carolina and North Carolina State. Tar Heels and Wolfpack backers have been making good cash so far this season. Last year, road team won and covered both meetings. This is not a series where the home court tends to matter a whole lot. And we're talking about two teams. Look at this total of $171.5. Both teams top 12 in the country in offensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm's numbers. If you're not looking at Ken Palm's numbers, you're not betting college basketball at a serious level. But Ken Palm, of course, ranks 352 teams, both in North Carolina and NC State, in the top 12 of those 352 teams. The Wolfpack in particular, 52% shooting for the season, better than 40% from three-point range. Team that can get stops tonight is going to win this ballgame. I'm not convinced either team is going to get a whole lot of stops. I think this game has real shootout potential.
Also, Teddy, looking at adjusted tempo for both of these squads, both top 15 in the country. So not only getting good shooting and good execution on offense, you're also getting the tempo there that could lead to some extra possession. So an interesting one down there on Tobacco Row. Second game we're going to take a look at, battle in Lubbock, Texas tonight. Oklahoma and Texas Tech. It looks like the line's right now sitting -6.5 as the home favorite for Texas Tech. Total 132, Teddy. So again, a little bit of a different dichotomy from the early game that we're going to take a look at to the later one here. Money line coming up plus 235, -280 in some outlets. ESPN News Game, 9 p.m., live from Lubbock, Texas. Oklahoma comes in 12-2, and Texas Tech firing at 13-1, and that only lost, Teddy, in Madison Square Garden to those Duke Blue Devils. How about a quick preview for this game as well?
Sure, exactly. I mean, two teams that have gotten off to really hot starts, and it's because of their defense. Texas Tech, #1 overall defense in college basketball so far this season. We saw them get the job done when they traveled to West Virginia, in a tough environment there, getting the stops they needed down the stretch of a tough game. When you're the #1 overall defense, you're going to attract betting market support, and the Red Raiders have all season long. Oklahoma, #6 in overall defense. So you can anticipate a relatively slow pace, not many open looks, not a lot of transition baskets. Certainly has the feel of an under-type contest. Really interesting here, 12-2 versus 13-1, straight up. But the reality is not 12-2 versus 13-1 for bettors. The reality is 12-1-1 versus 5-9. Oklahoma has been a consistently undervalued commodity from day one this season. Texas Tech hasn't. So a little bit of steam towards the Red Raiders here. Not with my money.
Divisional round preview number 2 this week on That Betting Show, Teddy. Whose house? The Rams' house. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Rams teeing it up 8:15 Eastern time Saturday night. Back-to-back weeks. Those Dallas Cowboys are shown in prime time. The rested and ready Rams look like they get Todd Gurley back in this one. A little bit banged up here at wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Allen Hurns, not a huge contributor, but certainly for depth. Cole Beasley gets injured last week, fights through it in that game admirably. Are we going to see another week that says, Teddy, Zeke, 30-plus touches in order for us to win? Or are those Rams just going to dial it up and say, you know what, we're going to take it to a next level? Last week when we looked at the football game, loved the way the Dallas Cowboys play at home, take care of the business. Now going on the road, a little bit different story here. Is it Zeke or nothing here? What's up with this preview here, Teddy?
Well, I mean, there are issues with Dallas when it comes to the receiving core right now. And in my mind, that's front and center when it comes to handicapping this matchup. We've seen the Cowboys defense prove capable of shutting down some pretty high octane offenses this year. We saw them shut down New Orleans when they knocked off the Saints at home. All that being said, McVay off a bye with extra time. Goff wasn't good in the playoff game last year. He wasn't. He looked like a young QB making his first postseason start. I'm expecting significantly better offensive execution this time around from the LA Rams following their bye week. It's a Cowboys team that's not built to come from behind. If LA gets off to a lead, Dallas is in trouble with Hearns out and Beasley, very limited so far, and maybe extremely limited this week. We don't know how healthy he's going to be. So if Dallas is going to win this game, Dallas is going to have to run the football effectively and keep that Rams offense off the field. I do think that the Cowboys correlate with under in this ballgame, more even than the Rams correlate with over. If you like Dallas, Dallas cannot compete and hang in a shootout. I don't expect that to happen in LA. Cowboys and under works together. If you like the Rams, you have to think they're going to be able to put the biscuit in the basket, much the way Clemson did last night. Put up touchdowns in bunches with this Rams offense is certainly capable of doing, especially with Todd Gurley likely to be ready to go.
Looking forward, we'll update these lines as we go on during the week. Rams currently favored by -7, a little bit juicy depending on where you're shopping at. 115 to 120 is out there, total 49. But I do agree with you, Teddy. This isn't one of those games where Dak is going to throw you to victory. You're going to have to stand on your defense, almost similar to what the effort they gave at home versus the New Orleans Saints. Off the mic, Teddy. Here we go. A little bit of NFL topic. And you West Coasters out there always complaining about something. We got to fly back east and play at 1 o'clock. It's a 10 o'clock game on our body clock. Fair or foul, Teddy, that they keep making the Chargers do this? Or, hey, Chargers, get home field advantage and don't worry about it.
I mean, it's a yes and no scenario here. Let's start with this. Chargers on the road, back-to-back weeks, and now have the early start game on Sunday. That's the nature of the schedule. I mean, that's the schedule was announced before the opponent were announced. The 4 home teams were on the Don Best screen or on the SBR live odds screen before the winners were determined over wild card weekend. So the Chargers have nothing to complain about. That's just the way that it is. You win, you get to survive in advance and go on and play your next game on the road. In this case, it happens to be an early start game at New England. And of course, when you're 8-1 straight up and 8-1 ATS on the highway, the only loss coming in LA to the Rams might be a good thing for the Chargers to be on the road, especially considering they have Hunter Henry. He's a guy we talked about last week as a guy to watch who was not activated for the game in Baltimore. Hunter Henry will be activated and expected to play against New England on Sunday.
Also, injury information coming out today, Teddy, as well. Looks like Melvin Gordon should be a go for that game. Saw him with 2 bad knees and a bad ankle. But, hey, he's going to gut it out, unlike one running back they had a couple years ago that went to Foxborough and sat on the sidelines in a coat and his visor. But that's it today for That Betting Show, the best 20 minutes in sports, your one-stop shop for all your betting needs. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Donnie and Teddy right back at you. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Sportsbookreview.com has you covered. Have a good day.